Welcome back to the Man Cave, everybody, for episode 51 of the ManTFup podcast. I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
That's right. Now, before we go any further, please like, subscribe, share, and follow the ManTFup podcast and ManTFup TV absolutely any and everywhere. If you're feeling frisky, you can also follow ManTFup Garage as well. Also, get ready to drop your comments. Lately, we've been trying to, keep the podcast episodes to headlines that we've been seeing. And education has definitely been a big one, especially here in the state of Florida. I know for a long time, but really highlighted in 2023 because they've been making a lot of changes. And I know, Len, you found a TikTok clip of this is a news talk person, right? I feel like he's like an AM news talk person, but he basically is saying if he was a principal.
Yeah, well, he's got the American speech. The American public school system failed because a speech like this. Let's see what he said.
Could never be given. But he's basically coming at it like if he was a principal addressing his school, is what
he's coming at it with a belief that this is what
his mission statement.
This is what
of his school.
Yes, what the public school system in general should kind of focus on.
Okay,
but let's just play the clip.
High school principal gave the following speech: America would be a much better place. To the students and faculty of our high school, I am your new principal and honored to be so. There is no greater calling than to teach young people. I would like to apprise you of some important changes coming to our school. First, this school will no longer honor race or ethnicity. I could not care less if you are black, brown, red, yellow, or white. I could not care less if your origins are African, European, Latin American, or Asian, or if your ancestors arrived here on the Mayflower or on slave ships. The only identity this school will recognize is your individual identity, your character, your scholarship, your humanity. And the only national identity this school will recognize is American. This is an American public school, and American public schools were created to make better Americans. If you wish to affirm here an ethnic or racial identity or a national identity other than American, you will have to attend another school. This includes after-school clubs. I will not authorize clubs that divide students based on identities such as race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or whatever else may become in vogue in our society. Those clubs cultivate narcissism, an unhealthy preoccupation with the self, while the purpose of education is to get you to think beyond yourself. The school's clubs will be based on interests and passions, clubs that transport you to the wonders and glories of art, music, astronomy, languages you do not already speak, and more. If the only extracurricular activities you can imagine being interested in are those based on ethnicity, race, or sexual identity, that means that little outside of yourself really interests you. Second, I do not care whether English is your native language. My only interest in terms of language is that you leave this school speaking and writing English as fluently as possible. The English language has united America's citizens for over 200 years, and it will unite us at this school. Furthermore, I would be remiss in my duty to ensure that you will be prepared to successfully compete in the job market if you leave this school without excellent English language skills. We will learn other languages here. It's deplorable that most Americans only speak English. But if you want classes taught in your native language rather than in English, this is not the right school for you. Third, because I regard learning as a sacred endeavor, everything in this school will reflect learning's elevated status. This means, among other things, that you and your teachers will dress accordingly. There will be a dress code at this school. And you will address all teachers by their title, not by their first name. They are your teachers, not your pals. Fourth, no obscene language will be tolerated anywhere on this school's property. By obscene language, I mean the words banned on radio and television, plus epithets such as the B word, even when addressed by one girl to another, or the N word, even when used by one black student to another. It is my intent that by the time you leave this school, you will be among the few your age to distinguish between the elevated and the degraded, the holy and the obscene. Fifth, we will end all self-esteem programs. In this school, self-esteem will be attained in only one way, the only way self-esteem can be attained, by earning it. One immediate consequence is that graduating classes will have one valedictorian, not 8. Sixth and last, I am reorienting the school toward academics and away from politics and propaganda. No more time will be devoted to racism, sexism, Islamophobia, homophobia, global warming, tobacco, or gender identity. No more classes will be devoted to condom wearing and teaching you to regard sexual relations as no more than a health issue. And there will be no more attempts to convince you that you are a victim because you are not white or male or heterosexual or Christian. This school will have failed if any of you graduate without considering him or herself inordinately lucky. Lucky to be alive and lucky to be an American. Now, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country.
So, now, I know our little pre-conversation that we had, you were mentioning that he's talking about not teaching history or about black history or about any history. And I don't think that's what he's saying there.
No. He said he didn't want to teach about sexism, racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, or anything else that happens to actually be a prevalent, real scourge in the side of our society. He also said that, he wasn't going to subscribe to the whole, if you are not white, male, heterosexual, or Christian, you're disenfranchised. Funny coming from the white, male, heterosexual, Christian man. He also alluded to, the holy and the obscene. We're not going to teach sex ed.
The holy and the obscene, he was referring to words.
Yes, I know, but holy and obscene.
Okay,
no,
you have a better word to describe?
His underline, appropriate or obscene.
Okay.
There's clearly a Christian derivative to his entire thing when you really get into it, and that's again, that is okay. I'm the same person that thinks that we should have non-denominational.
Let's go point by point across what he had to say.
You wanted to come for me over one particular thing, but
I
would love to.
No, I want to.
But tell them why. So let me explain to you. Lenny sends me this, and I said, hey, principal video is interesting. Not necessarily a school I would maybe send my kids to. I definitely, I think, agree with some of the points. But I take issue with others. That's where this conversation comes from. And you're going to try to convince me that I'm clearly.
No, I heard it. I think I heard it differently than you heard it, and that's not surprising. That's basically just opinions. I mean, let's just go to the after school stuff. Okay, the after school clubs not being race, gender, any of that stuff. I mean, why would you have a problem with that? Like, why can't a kid just go to a drama club? And the drama club
they have that.
Everybody, yeah, I understand. So what's wrong? There's nothing wrong with the drama club.
Absolutely not.
What he's talking about is specific clubs for specific
Lenny, I'm aware
things,
of what he's talking
about.
about.
Yeah, but that makes you that. But don't you think that makes people less included?
No, because some kids don't have access to that's like saying that you don't need a Boys and Girls Club of America, or you don't need a Pride Center, or you don't need SunServe, or you don't need.
I'm just talking about public school activities.
I know, but Lenny, this is my point to you. Not all children have access to programming side of their school. For some kids, school is the be-all, end-all to their day. And that's actually for a lot of American kids. Let's be honest. There's a 1% for a reason, right?
So is there anything wrong with those kids being in groups that are social and eclectic rather than being in groups that are specific?
Absolutely not. But you're targeting certain groups because of their specificity. It's discrimination in one way or the other.
But it's not really discrimination. It seemed to me like he's trying to just make every student under the roof of this building a student.
But not every
not
student,
a black student, not an Asian student,
I understand
not a
that,
gay
Lenny,
student,
but
a
guess
student.
What? That's not how. First of all, you can't homogenize everyone. We are not all the same. That is one of the most beautiful things about
And nobody's
this
trying
country.
to homogenize anybody. This is school. School does not belong to these conversations. School is a place for kids to learn.
It is, but we're talking about after-school programs, which are extracurricular activities, which are places for children to grow and enhance themselves and feel a part of. So not every kid feels a part of at school, so why not provide them? If it's a school that is open to it, what is so wrong with having Amnesty International, right, is a program that's usually, it's great. It's usually very multicultural. It's a lot of times for students from multicultural backgrounds that want to, either get involved, what is it? Not Greenpeace, but like the UN and things like that. I think that there's ways to do it, but the man is talking about getting rid of, it's a collective narrative that he has throughout this entire kind of monologue that he gives. And I just don't see, I feel like you're targeting, because again, I feel like you're targeting specific groups and saying, I want to force you to be a part of this over here. Drama club has always existed.
I want to force you to be a part of school. I want to force you to be a part.
Stop saying that, Lenny. You said let's talk about after-school programs.
Yeah, okay.
Which are where people go to either tap into a hobby.
Yeah, for their interest.
Yes,
for their interest. I have kids. I know they go to after-school stuff.
Okay, and your kid
one
is
goes to play football. One goes here.
Yeah.
One goes. So I don't think he's saying let's eliminate football, basketball, and everything else.
What does that have to do with you eliminating?
But that's an after-school activity.
But what does that have to do with eliminate? Again, you're talking about
Okay,
sports.
give me an example of a club that would be very specific
I'm
to
not
an
in middle
ethnicity or a
I'm not in
sexuality.
middle or in high school. I can't. I'm telling you, if there's a Sunser, like a Sunser program is a program for predominantly LGBTQIA plus identifying youth, right? It's a nonprofit organization, but I would assume, I don't understand if there's not, and I'm going to say this to you, Lenny, why are we addressing it if they don't exist? So I'm assuming that these types of clubs for, members of the LGBTQ community are starting to pop up in maybe our high schools, right? So he wants to eliminate these. I'm assuming that maybe if you had a female-centric entrepreneurial class? Women in real estate, women in business. He's saying he wants to get rid of all of that. If it's got to do with gender, sexual identity, race, it's out. That's a great way to bring in mentors specifically for women who are underrepresented. What if it's STEM for women? Why is this a problem? These are underrepresented groups that we know historically. We have nowhere near as many women in tech. We have nowhere near as many women in engineering or mathematics. So if you can have an after-school club that is focused on them, because oftentimes women feel out of place. Young girls feel out of place in a male-dominated discipline or academic area of study, whether it's mathematics or science. There's a lot of male professors, teachers, educators that are not welcoming to young women, feel like they don't necessarily belong there. So I'm not mad if there's a school that's got a female robotics team. This guy's saying absolutely not. Now I'm sure robotics.
No, he's saying absolutely. Will it not be gender specific?
Yeah.
So yeah, you could have a robotics team that's predominantly women, but it has to be available to men also.
But guess
to
what?
boys also.
Sometimes when you have that, inclusivity is great, but inclusivity that does not come from a truly well-intentioned place never ends up being inclusive. Separate but equal was a thing, and then we integrated schools. Do you think that they were truly integrated? Like, do you think that everything was equal? Do you think that people felt welcome? No. So again, when schools separate things out, especially when it comes to marginalized groups, again, it's to really let people in those groups feel seen and actually get the most out of those clubs. So if you have a young girl who feels awkward around boys or whatever, and she wants to join robotics, and I'm not saying that, because guess what? You should be able to join whichever club you want. I just don't see why we have to limit it or say, no, we're not going to do things on these basis, because the people that he's targeting are, once again, groups that have historically been marginalized. So sometimes that's the only way.
But that's an opinion. Because
it's not an opinion. That is fact, Lenny. I can pull up statistics right now.
No, that's an opinion that he is targeting them. It doesn't sound to me like he's targeting them. It sounds to me like he wants an all-inclusive school where nobody is...
Lenny, that's the world we've been living in, and it's not that way. You can't reprogram. It is the world we've been living in. That is why people have felt the need to branch out and create women-only investment groups, Latino-only investment groups, real estate, robotics.
Let's
STEM.
listen. I'll concede to the after-school programs. Okay, you have to figure out your after-school programs. What about the school days?
What about the school?
What about the school days? What about when you're in school? Mm-hmm. What about the things he wants to do when you're in school? English
Teaching,
language.
Absolutely. That I think is a fundamental. Although, again, in a city like Miami, like, we have high schools here where majority of the classes are taught in Spanish or Creole, because majority of these students are literally fresh into this country.
Yeah, but don't we have an ESOL program for that?
We do, but in some schools, when the majority of your students are Spanish language first students and they're starting off right away, why would you penalize them? Like, you have to teach them English in order for them to learn. So now you're assuming that all students are coming into school speaking English. Again, it's the blessing and the curse of being an incredible country like we have. You have kids that come here at, when they're born. You have children that are born here to immigrant parents that only speak another language, and they learn growing up, and they're bilingual.
I mean, Miami's a good example. We have English, Spanish, Creole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some schools are
we have three mm-hmm. languages in our school
they test in all
right
those
now.
Languages, right?
So where does that stop? So so Spanish and Creole are now mm-hmm. special. What if somebody comes here from Israel and they speak Hebrew? Mm-hmm. Are we going to do Hebrew classes? Where does it stop? This is the United States of America that's built on English-speaking things.
Here's the deal, though.
Now, South Florida, I grew up here,
mm-hmm.
Kimmy. I was born and raised here. Mm-hmm. I know everything there is to know about South Florida and what cultures are here and what is here. And yeah, it's a little disheartening to me sometimes to go to places and I can't order because nobody speaks English. Nobody. So
but you also fall into that category, Len, that he was talking about how disgraceful it is that Americans are,
I think,
unilingual. Is that a word?
No, yeah, but listen, it's absolutely true. You've
lived in a community where you could technically, Lenny.
Yes, I believe that, but I don't believe that people should come here and not learn the language.
Fact.
I think that's totally disrespectful mm-hmm. to the United States itself.
Yeah.
Okay, learn the language. I don't care if you speak it well. I don't care anything.
I think outside of Miami, you have a lot of immigrants that feel exactly the same way as you, though. I mean, there are many, 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 many people who aspire to come to this country and want to be fully assimilated and want their children to be fully assimilated. We happen to live in a minority-majority city.
Yeah, it's
a little bit,
but it's also one community in particular that perpetuates the Spanish.
But it's become even easier for people from other places. So obviously you had that massive influx of Cuban immigrants, right? That kind of set the tone, very similar to Italians and Irish and whatever in New York earlier on. And I say that because they were able to really create systems and set up industry and business here and thrive as a community, right? As an ethnic.
But I think that's also been generational through that community, because I think the people who originally came here in 58, 59 were all about learning English. And I think a lot of them spoke English when they came here.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, as more and more people immigrated here from that country, they
all started immigrating from other countries, which then leads to a larger collective.
No, I get it, but most of the people I know from other countries have learned to speak English.
Because they're taught English. Like, I mean, that's...
I get it, but, you know, it's like a community took it upon itself not
But let me ask you a question, though.
Not to learn English.
Ironically enough, though, like, I think it's pretty safe to say that Spanish is probably the second language of America, right? Like, if you had to say English is obviously our first language, Spanish is second.
I would say.
This should be a pre-K thing in this country.
Yeah, no, kids should. I definitely think kids should start learning Spanish younger.
Because anywhere else in the world, like in Europe, you know, I'm sure in South America, Nestor, you're sitting
but
there
I don't,
in South America,
I
when did
don't
they start
believe
teaching English or a second language in school?
I don't believe that a child should come out of school only speaking Spanish.
Absolutely not. I'm 100% there with you.
And it should be the opposite.
But again, I will say this.
Other countries teach other languages in school.
But people are also not immigrating to other countries at the rate that they are immigrating to this country, right? Like that's...
No, but you know,
can we agree?
China teaches English in all of their...
Yeah, that's...
all of their schools.
You're making the point. Like,
yeah, no, listen. I believe it, but
I'm explaining to you why it is necessary in some of our public schools in order to really educate. When you've got somebody who's just getting here from Haiti and their first language is Creole and you've got state testing coming down and these schools are trying to maintain their accreditation and not get closed down, it forces teachers into a box where it goes, okay, it's easier for me to communicate with these students in a language that they understand so that they can at least take the test. I mean, this is a state that actually administers state tests in 3 languages. We administer them in English, in Creole, and in Spanish through high school. So technically, we have enabled our students to make it all the way through.
Exactly.
So you can't blame them or say they don't want to learn. But when you have somebody
I'm not blaming the kids.
I'm just saying when you get
I'm not blaming the kids.
At 15.
I'm blaming the system.
And some of them have had minimal access. Like, that's the other difference, too.
Listen,
not every country
if you immigrate here when you're 15 years old and you go into the public school system, first of all, you have to be evaluated. I think there should be accommodations for students that fall into that category. But if you immigrated here when you were 5, by the time you're out of middle school, you better learn how to speak English.
But I'm just saying, like, Len, you have, I mean, like, I guess the point to that is, you know, you have to take into consideration certain cities. And Miami is always going to be an entity unto itself. Like, I use Haiti in particular because how many disasters has that country had? And people fled here. Right? People who may have had no intention of ever leaving their island home ever have to come here because they've lost everything, including their parents. Some of them maybe never stepped foot a day in school, have been working their whole life, whatever the case may be. I mean, poverty is poverty, right? So when they get here at 15, we have that influx. It's just a next level thing. I think so. So my experience when I say that, like, they have entire schools full of kids who are falling under that umbrella. If you go to Middle America, I don't think the influx.
I understand that. And that should be a specific school.
Well, it is. It's called Miami Edison Senior High School.
Yeah.
Like, that is one of them. I'm just saying, and it's almost lost its accreditation numerous times, but it's
because the curriculum they teach is whatever. You know, the curriculums in the schools are...
But that's a heartbreaking thing because down the street, you know what I mean? Like no public... So to this principal's point, and it's something we've discussed at length on this podcast, no public school, in my personal opinion, should be better than any other public school. Like, literally, if I walk into any public school in this country, I feel like I should be able to get the same level education. I shouldn't be at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and I'm in an A school and I go 3 miles down the street to another high school and it's a C school. How does that happen? Like, we know how it happens, but how does it happen? So I'm not mad at laying out. I'm not, like, some of the things, like I said, I agree with this, man. I'm not mad at a dress code. I am not mad at the language being spoken in schools at all. Like, and by language, profanity, the use of certain, slang to reference one another. It's inappropriate. I like that he said, the things you can and can't say on TV and radio, although that is deteriorating as well. Trust me, I push that envelope on the regular. But yeah, no, I'm not mad at that. And I don't remember being, again, able to say those things in school. When I was in school, you certainly could not walk around the halls dropping N words or B words or, I dare you to flip a teacher the bird. I dare you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is just wild that this is even a conversation that we have to have in 2023, right? Like, we should be getting better, and instead we're devolving. And that's an unfortunate thing.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because, if we educated our kids, I don't think we'd be in this volatile situation that we're in right now. If our kids actually learned, the actual history of the United States, all of it, if they learned everything.
You can't learn the actual history of the United States, though, and not teach racism.
I'm not saying don't teach it. I'm not saying don't teach it. No, he's not saying that.
Len.
He's not saying
Lenny,
that.
Listen to the end of the clip. He most definitely did say that. He said, I will no longer subscribe to the politics and propaganda. We will not touch on anything that has to do with racism, sexism, Islamophobia,
politics
homophobia.
And propaganda. Yeah, politics and propaganda is not history.
And then he rattles off racism is a part of history. Sexism, these are not.
But
that is not politics and propaganda.
He's talking
Islamophobia is not propaganda.
He's
it's
talking
a very
about
real
not
thing in this
having
country.
a class about that. He's not talking about
why would you
not
have
teaching
a class
history
about it, though?
But why wouldn't you just teach history? Why wouldn't you just teach history? The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, everything that happened after the Civil War, all of this stuff. Why wouldn't you teach all of it?
Because you and I went to school where they taught history that way, right? Like, we've had this discussion.
Yeah.
But we now realize that there are other parts of it that need to be expanded upon. Like, again, there's a huge part of the history of this country pre-even Christopher Columbus, pre-Indigenous people, Native Americans, and I'm talking about the Taino people, right? I'm talking about the history of Central and South America. Like,
that's the Americas. That's, I get it.
No, they weren't the Americas, though. We named them that. White people named them that. They were here long before Christopher Columbus and his fucking ship got over here, and Amerigo Vespucci and the rest of them. So there was a whole history, culture, incredible account, very similar. But it doesn't get, it doesn't get taught. It doesn't get expanded upon. Like, there are incredible things. Like, history should be, it should be an evolution over the course of your educational career.
It should be. But don't you think, like, the let's just say, first grade to sixth grade, we should probably just teach the history of the United States. So this is our first president. This is our democracy. Yeah. This is the Boston Tea Party. This is what happened. This is this. This is when slavery ended. Mm-hmm. This is the Civil Rights Act.
You have 8-year-olds, though, at the Women's March, right? Like, you understand this, right? Like, have you looked around? Did you see the protests that were happening in 2020? Like, children are involved. They're engaged. They're making signs. They're aware of what has gone on in the world. So why do we continue to treat them like they're stupid? Now, I'm not saying that we need to, delve into the deepest,
exactly
darkest.
What their parents taught them.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, kids have been out at protests for, forever. Like, the French Revolution, there were 9 and 10-year-olds in the streets. You know what I mean? Like, rallying with their parents. There were 9. Again, you go back to the early 1900s, 9-year-olds were working in factories.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you want to protect? Where are we at with this? Because then you're the same guy that thinks that kids, hey, go make a buck. Like, so you want them to be in the workforce making money, but you don't want them to learn about the very real aspects of racism in and around the world, of sexism in and around the world, of different, these are things that impact us. If we wait till we get to college, now you're hitting it, now you're getting slapped in the face with it. You're also learning about, why not better prepare people? Why not have the conversations and make better human beings?
Who's saying don't teach world history in high school? I'm not saying that. World history is world history.
Again, we're talking about this man. He didn't address if this was in an elementary school, and you've seen how this works.
I took what he was saying as there's not going to be specific stuff. We're going to teach history. History involves all of this stuff. It could be good, bad, ugly, slavery,
So you just
sex-
don't want to listen to the literal 0.6. You just want to just cut that part off of the TikTok where he specifically said he would not be teaching, like we will not be discussing racism, sexism. If you are not white male heterosexual Christian, that you are disenfranchised. Again, coming from the white male heterosexual Christian, older male, by the way. You guys have to see the whole video. Can we please post the video? Will that be in the podcast?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna give him the video.
Fantastic. The irony of this man was just not lost on me. No, again, I'm here for part of it. The slippery slope is when you start saying, yeah, I love all of this for our kindergarten through 6th graders. We saw how well that worked in fucking Florida. We went from K through 3rd to K through... No, the whole shebang bang. K through 12. We're not talking about this, or this.
You know, there's plenty of studies throughout history that have shown what's age appropriate for kids. Plenty of them. And I think everybody could get on board with what age is appropriate to do this with your kid, what age is appropriate to do this with your kid, especially people who've had kids. You know, I had this discussion the other day with someone who is... parent of I think she's probably 5, 6 years old now. And, we had the whole, I'm like, he's kind of going off the rails about the drag show thing. And he's like, why? Why do you think so? I'm like, well, because, what was the context of it? Was it this or was it this? I spoke to somebody the other night. They're like, oh, they were doing sexual acts on stage. I'm like, no, they were not. I'm like, it's a drag show. Okay, it's theater to these people.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like,
their characters.
So
Literally.
I said to him, he's like, yeah, but for kids, I'm like, listen, I said, when you were growing up and I was growing up, if you opened your mouth to your fucking parents at dinner in public, you'd get smacked across the fucking face. And you know what? Today, that's child abuse. If you do that to your kid today, oh, well, we need to bring back some more of that. I'm like, well, that's great. That's your prerogative as a parent. Just as it's their prerogative as a parent to take them to an art show, And he kind of seceded on it to me that, well, you put it that way, then it kind of makes sense.
But again, wouldn't you say, though, it's also about the evolution of people, right? You're talking about studies about what's age appropriate. And it's funny because I watched the Brooke Shields documentary. And remember, she was in a
clearly
movie
exploited.
called Pretty Baby and also The Blue Lagoon. Iconic, not so much Pretty Baby, but Blue Lagoon was certainly iconic here in the U.S. And, let her tell it. And sitting there, she's having a conversation at the end of the documentary with her teenage daughters. And they're talking about, advocacy. And they're just basically talking about how you didn't have, autonomy and how you didn't, it was brilliant to hear these young women speak to their mother. And it was like, I don't know if that would have been the dialogue 30 years ago, right? It clearly wasn't the dialogue between her and her mother. And Brooke went to Princeton and, has an Ivy League education.
Listen,
and is a very, very bright young woman.
Part of that kind of thing should be part of curriculum of the history of the United States. The 90s, the 80s, that should all be part of the history. One of the things that when we were in school that were not taught was like the immediate, did you hear about the 70s when you were in school? No, you didn't hear about.
No, you heard about Woodstock. You heard about marquee moments from the 70s,
but
right? You
not
heard about hippies. You heard about.
You weren't really taught that part. You weren't.
No, we
taught
did.
that.
We had Spirit Week, so of course you had the silliness.
Yes, but you weren't taught that short span of history right before you were in school. So is it okay to add to a curriculum? Hey, this was kind of the 80s was kind of a sexist time. Women were exploited. That could be part of the history of the United States.
Women have been exploited for all time, though, Len. It didn't just happen in the 80s. And my point to you was, we've clearly gotten better. We've learned from the Brooke Shields thing, right? So that's obviously, now there's laws in place, right? There's child advocates on set making sure that this isn't happening. She even said it. She's like, yo, I wouldn't be me. If my career was just starting off now and I had to take the same path, my path would never happen. Because in 2023, we would never let an actual 10 or 11-year-old play a hooker living in a brothel, getting bought by an old ass man. That is the storyline to Pretty Baby, in case you haven't seen it. And Brooke is has to kiss an old man. And it was directed by a French film director. Movie was lauded in Europe, right? Cinema gold, it's gorgeous, it's, oh my God, like all of these things. In America, not so much, for understandable reasons. But fast forward, we grow, we get better, we learn from our mistakes, right? And I just don't see why we can't apply some of this logic that we're using to protect children to make better futures for our young women, to make better young men. Like, if we teach about, the Me Too movement in high school, like, that should be taught. We should understand what that is. If you start early, if you start waiting till college, people have already,
matured.
Not even, it's not about maturity, Len. They've already learned a lot of their bad habits too. They've already learned their frat boy culture. If we're not talking about the do's and don'ts and the yes and no.
Let's go right to that. Okay, let's go right to that. So they've already learned all of these habits. Okay, so essentially, you want to mold these kids from the time they're born to not have any of these habits that you don't think are appropriate.
Lenny, rape culture is not appropriate.
I'm not talking about rape.
That is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about building better character. And that is what some of these conversations do. Seeing people more clearly for who they are. Seeing people as true equals. Like, there's nothing wrong with having certain dialogue, especially as kids get older. Stop acting like you're raising.
But is there something wrong with
infants.
having a hierarchy? Is there something wrong with?
What do you mean by a hierarchy?
Exactly what I said. A hierarchy. Just like you have in your entire life, everything you will ever come across in your entire life has a hierarchy. Even if you're the boss.
What hierarchy would you like?
Even if you're the boss, there's a hierarchy.
Okay, well, what hierarchy would you like to see?
No, I'm just saying. There's plenty of people that believe in
like?
Traditional roles for women and traditional roles for men.
So you would like for things to stay exactly the same, or actually, you would like for them to revert back because we had.
No, I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't.
So you don't want your daughter to have more opportunities. You don't hope that your daughter faces less harassment in the workplace in 10 years. 10 years from now, you wouldn't hope that she would have a better situation.
No, you know what I would do? I would tell her, suck it up, buttercup, and be better than the next
person. As opposed to telling your son, how about you be a better fucking human being? Don't be a toxic piece of shit. Understand that no means no. You're not better because you got a dick. All of these things. That's fine. Part of the conversation, though, Lenny.
Yeah, but that falls on the parents.
No, Lenny. It takes a village, bro. It takes a village, and these kids are oftentimes in school more, and that is the place for debate because unfortunately at home, if your parent wasn't raised that way, guess what? You're not going to be raised that way either. So, if I'm seeing homophobia in the household,
what you're saying is parents should no longer be able to raise their kids the way they want to.
Len, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is,
if your parents don't raise you,
make up your mind
this way.
Y'all got to make up your minds. You want your teachers to be able to discipline your children when they show their ass.
I want my teachers to be able to be respected by the student.
But you don't want your teachers to be able to engage children in honest dialogue about very real parts of human interaction, very real parts of adulthood. Like, you don't want them to be able to have those conversations about racism and sexism.
Listen, I think if
then you don't want the world to be better.
I think if you allowed,
that's why we are exactly. I
think if you allowed teachers to glean the respect of the students from the time they're in fucking kindergarten.
That starts with the parents.
But listen, I get it. This is not just about the school system, okay? Parents need to own this too because parents are the reason that kids can't fucking sit in the corner or be disciplined in class. Parents are the reason for that.
But parents are also the reason why we have racist children.
Listen,
parents are also the reason why we have sexist children.
If you let your teachers teach your kids respect, by the time they get to high school, Kimmy, they're not those kids that are disrespectful to people.
Lenny, that's
they
a lie.
learn
You
a
can be
respect.
disrespectful. Like, I mean, like let's be very clear here. You and I grew up at a time.
So-
you literally had your knuckles wrapped.
So-
because we weren't having these conversations. Because you're going to ask me. So what would have been different? Having real conversations along with that element of respect.
So if your dad is rah 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 rah,
Yep.
you can't raise a kid like that.
You can't raise a kid like
You can't raise a kid that feels like he wants his wife to be at home cooking. You can't raise a kid to say, "Look, this is what I believe in. I want my wife not to work.
but
I
guess
want her to
what?
stay home and raise my kids."
The problem is, Len, if you let traditional values dictate what we learn in school, then every woman will feel that is her only place, is in the kitchen. If you don't talk about the sexism that kept women from elevating, that still has women making 7 cents, 70 cents on the dollar to men, then it doesn't change. So basically, you like the status quo, and then it's on the parents. But this is the problem. When you don't talk about things, when you don't bring them out of the dark and into the light, and you don't have the very real conversations in a situation and in an environment that is set up for debate, in an environment that is set up for learning and understanding and communication. That is what school is about, right? School is not just about dictation. I'm going to tell you this, you write it down. That is not what the best school, you do not pay the money that you pay for your kids to go to that fucking fancy ass private school so that they can be told not to think and just take what I say as fact, write it down and regurgitate it on a paper. Your kids go to that school so that they learn to be critical thinkers.
Yeah.
Critical thinkers. You know how you do that? With dialogue, with debate, with having the difficult conversations. And that includes racism, sexism, Islamophobia, homophobia. All of those things that this man would like removed from math, science, English, and history. Oh, and
He's not
English.
saying remove it from classes. He's saying he doesn't want it to be a specific thing.
Lenny, I need you to listen. That is a part of... No. He is removing it. Like, so you're talking about...
So you're telling me he's not going to teach slavery in history? Is that what you're telling me? You're telling me that's what he said?
That's not... Lenny, people have been learning about slavery for a very long time.
All of it.
Right? No, not all of it.
No,
because
I mean...
it's told... No, I don't. I don't think this white, hetero, man, Christian is going to do the kind of deep dive that certain parts or that all history deserves. I don't. I like the direction. Honestly, I like the direction that certain parts of education are going in. I like that we're pushing the envelope. I like that we're having difficult conversation. And by the way, these are usually at the AP level, which are, again, these are
college classes. They're
college courses that you A, have to be approved for, and B, have to want to take. These aren't force-fed down anybody's throat.
Yeah.
These are not a part of,
That's fine.
Carte blanche
I'm
curriculum.
okay with that.
You understand what I'm saying? These are courses. These are electives. Like, you have to want to take it. And then they charge you for it. I like critical, and I think that it should be done more. I think that is why we have so many students right now that are flailing. Because, again, you have schools like Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I'm talking about public education only. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas that has got debate and, that has got every resource, at their fingertips, and where they're doing these critical, thinking exercises. And then you got other schools like, unfortunately, Miami Edison, and this is not a knock because I know that some of the teachers that work there and I know the work that they put in, that are not afforded those same resources, right? That don't have those same, abilities and or capabilities. And that to me is
we already know that the public school system in this country is broken completely. Okay, with standardized testing. They're not teaching our kids at all. I mean, every kid should come out of elementary school knowing basic math, history, all the way through the 80s. They should have history, and they should know it. They should know our presidents. They should know what our presidents did.
Learn, that's
they
not,
don't learn that in elementary school.
No, but I remember. But when I got into,
you didn't know that in elementary school?
I don't remember.
You didn't know who the first president of the United States was?
I knew.
I could
read I was reading Anne Boleyn when I was 4.
I understand.
Like, yes, I
There's
knew
kids
the first
coming out of high
president
school
the
that
United
don't know who the first president of the
Well,
United States was.
that's a gross,
But that's the problem with our
I get it, but what this man is saying is not going to change. I don't think changes that. Like, because at the end of the day, we're talking about he's talking about curriculum, he's talking about environment, and again,
environment.
The big issue, but Lenny, the reason why some kids don't know history is because not even curriculum. It's when we've historically used education in this country to keep people in their place, whether that's an elevated place or whether that's a subservient place. Like, we have used education, we have weaponized education in this country.
Yeah.
And until you address that, I don't care what words are coming out of their mouths in the hallway or what they're wearing.
The curriculum needs to be up to date, but it needs to be specific. It needs to be, the basics of what the United States was built on, our history, and how we got to here.
Like I said, maybe this works in K through 5th. After Florida, I will never, ever co-sign any sort of legislation that says, it's only for... No, bitch, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't believe any of them. I don't believe you.
Well, Kimmy, I thought we've already discussed that no politician.
I get it, but they're the ones that passed the education legislation, Len. And here's the issue.
Maybe we need to speak out as people.
Lenny, what have we been doing for 51 episodes? That's what we do. That's what I try
in general.
to do on the radio. It's what I do on my social media. I mean, I'm out here yelling from the fucking rooftops. The other problem is this, though, is that now you have all these people advocating for school choice, right? So, okay, great. I'm sure there's a principal somewhere in this country that actually has implemented that mission statement, right? Maybe it's at a charter school, maybe it's at a Christian school, maybe it's, I don't know where it is, but I'm sure there's a principal out there that has a school that operates that way. That does us no good as a nation. I'm a firm believer, and I think I've said it school choice. School choice does not do us any good. I don't think, because I believe a nation, shows the value that it puts on its people by the quality of its education, its public education, access to good quality public education, right? Like, that to me is a direct indicator of how much you are valued by your government. And right now, our government is spitting in our face. And when you give people school choice options, all you do, once again, is double down on the disenfranchised. And I say that because if I have a voucher in my hand that says I can go to any school, right, I still need the means to get to that school. If it's a private school, obviously I could have already gone there because I can pay for it. If it's a charter school, maybe it's a charter school that's 10 miles away. Maybe I have parents that work the wrong, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Every community should have an accessible, quality public school system, right?
So let's just say,
I thought that
hypothetically, hypothetically that there was good quality schools. Do you think the students going into these schools are going to respect them and take care of them and not be abusive to the teachers and the thing? Don't you think part of it is community also? Let's just say, for instance, Bill Gates said, I'm going to build a school, or Bezos or Elon Musk says, I'm going to build a school right here, right next to Miami Edison. It's going to have the best of everything. I'm going to pay the teachers well. But if the students step out of line, they're getting thrown out of the school. Mm-hmm. How many students do you think you'd have in that school?
Honestly, you'd have a full school.
So then that's where our fight needs to be.
When people have pride in their home, in their house, in their community, in their school, when they take pride in that, when they feel like there's something worth being proud of, you'd be amazed at the way that they will defend it. This country, I think, is a great example of that, right? So, again, the same pride you want people to have in this country is the same pride this country needs to have in its people. And part of that starts at that level. And it does start with kids walking into clean schools, with teachers that care about being there, with teachers that are paid enough that they can care about being there and not how they're going to keep their lights on or food on their table or pay their car note. You know what I mean? We need teachers that are truly, truly qualified, whether it's their standards of education, and then that are allowed to teach. And yes, do there need to be, systems in place? Of course there do, but unfortunately, I don't know when this whole state testing thing came into.
Long time ago.
It did, but we took state tests, but the focus when I was in school, but Massachusetts,
I don't remember ever taking.
Say what you want to say about it. It's a state that values education Always has, always. Massachusetts, liberal, whatever. We value the shit out of public education. I went to an incredible public high school with 5,000 people in it, and we put multiple students every year in the Ivy Leagues. Extremely diverse backgrounds, all different income levels. Everyone, I hate to say, was like on some kumbaya shit, but we all kind of vibed together. I told you this. Like, we had a super diverse kind of like school. It was wild. It was very unique, and I wish that we could kind of recreate it in other places. But again, it was a big enough school where everybody came to that school because the education was good enough too. So you didn't have affluent parents pulling their kids out of public school and sending them to private schools. And we have the Tabors and the Andover, Massachusetts. We've got some of the best, boarding school, Ivy kind of feeder schools in the country. But our parents were just as proud to have their kids, competing in sports and debate.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of places like that in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody should have access to that. And literally, the school was surrounded by the projects, like legit. But you didn't see graffiti on that school. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like I would say we respected the school. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would say that we took pride in the fact that we were state champs and everything. Like, we were proud. Like, we were proud of the high school that we went to. And that showed.
Who in this country is capable of writing a curriculum for American history? I mean, is it a board? Is it a board of 20 people from all diverse backgrounds?
I think so.
That look and say, hey, this stays in history, this stays out. I mean, is that something that
we've talked about this, Len, when it comes to history, and again, I'm never going to fight anybody on facts, dates, times, facts, right? Especially in lower grades. I'd like to see the expansion come before college, right? Because, I mean, when you start getting into the nuances of it, and I'm talking about high school.
Yeah, 11th and 12th
because
grade.
At this point,
fine.
At this point, you've filled out all the maps. You know what I'm saying? You've learned about your world wars. You've learned the dates of Normandy. You know what I mean? Like we've learned 7. We've learned all. We've done these things. And when you get into that high school, you want to keep kids engaged, especially the kids that are interested in these things. You've got to expand on it a little bit. And that means coming at it from different perspectives, because that's the one part of history, as much as it's factual, facts are still subjective in the sense of you can have a date and a time, but the way everybody, all those individuals that rolled up on Normandy, right, had a different experience.
But you're talking about giving them facts.
Yeah.
So if you give someone facts, and they have 2 different opinions about those facts and carry them off in 2 different directions, that's critical thinking.
Yeah, but and that's the discussion. When we talk about even slavery in this country, right? You can't just teach it from a broad base. This is how many slaves there were. This is who owned plantations. This is the narrative. You've got to get a little Frederick Douglass up in there, right? You've got to get a little Alexander Hamilton. You've got to get a little Thomas. You need all of the pieces, especially as you get further into the history, to really understand the nuance and the experience of what that time was like historically in this country. Right? When we talk about the Tulsa Massacre, when we talk about different things, that have happened throughout this country, Bruce's Beach in Southern California, which is the beach that made national headlines earlier this year, and it's a story that we've discussed. When we talk about Central Park having actually been an affluent Black community before it was eminent domain, and teaching kids about eminent domain, because honestly, that affects you as an adult. Like, people can come and snatch up your freaking sidewalk and part of your lawn if they want to. You own your house, and the next thing you know, the city comes in and is like, hey, by the way, we're taking that tree forward, and it's ours now. What do you mean? Eminent domain. It's ours.
Yep.
You didn't know that? We actually own this. So imagine you start all of this.
Well, they pay for it.
But usually pennies on the dollar. And it's still theirs. Like, you don't really get to fight back on it. They'll pay you for it, but they're taking it one way or the other.
There's way too many things in this country that people don't even realize they sign away.
But imagine starting these conversations, right? Like, having, again, to my point, when I was talking about if you have kids in a high school, why not encourage women to get into these male-dominated industries, whether it's STEM, real estate, investing, tech. And sometimes the safest way to do that is to create a space just for them, right? And I know it goes back to your conversation.
But I mean, you really don't feel like kids coming out of high school today, especially women coming out of high school today, feel like they have the ability to be anything they want to be.
Yeah, and we fought really hard.
Okay, but they
to
got
get
it.
to that place.
It's there.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that we don't have twice the battle. Lenny, literally 3% of the tech industry is female.
Okay.
3%. Do you know how many women are in STEAM or in tech? It's representation. It's seeing people. So if you have female STEM professors,
So
or
like,
teachers,
what's her name? Sandberg.
That's that's your fallback, girl.
No, I'm just saying she's.
Like
what is she, second in Facebook?
Command in Facebook. Yeah, that's one woman. And let's
I
name
get it,
let's
but-
name Zuckerberg. Let's name Bezos. Let's name Elon. Let's
Listen.
like,
any woman can. You know, these. You're talking about people who have pioneered things.
Lenny, have you heard the conversations? Ask women who are in tech. Ask women who work in Silicon Valley what the environment is like there. Sexism, harassment, still very, very, very rampant. It's cultural. It is ingrained in who we are. Do
you think part of that is men will always be men and women will always be women?
I do. I also think it's an ego thing. I think men don't like to be outshone by women. I think that starts much, much, much earlier on when you're not, integrating things properly. And
again, it goes back to not being able to raise your kids the way you want to. Because you're talking about early on integrating things properly.
Every time you fight with me on these things, though, make yourself sound like a caveman.
But maybe I am somewhat of a caveman. Maybe I do.
Do you want Joey to be a misogynistic prick?
No.
Is that what you want?
Listen.
You want him to think it's okay to sexually assault a girl who's passed out?
Sexually assaulting a girl.
Kissing me before, but
that's you always take things to the extreme.
That's all a part of it.
Being the fucking man of the house does not mean you assault women.
But we're talking about
that doesn't mean you assault women. Being the man in the fucking relationship does not mean you assault women.
I get that. But
so, yes, I want my son to be the man in the fucking relationship.
The way you speak to women sometimes does lead to some men putting their hands on women because you can be mad disrespectful and dismissive. It is what it is. That is a cultural thing.
Yeah, well,
that gets.
I tell my kids, don't ever fucking hit a woman.
But you can talk to her like shit?
Listen.
Because you're a man? And that's just men
That's
are going to
not talking to her like shit. Being in charge is not talking to her like shit.
No. The tone of your voice, the condescension, you do it on this couch sometimes, and it's cool because I hit you right back with it. I can be condescending as fuck too.
Yeah.
So, but guess what?
Somebody's got to be in charge.
Have you read? It's not you, homie. Not on this couch.
Well, that's fine.
Understand that.
That's fine.
In your house, but that doesn't mean you have to be rude or dismissive. That's a part of that. That's sexism, Len. That's misogyny.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, sorry. But your kids grow up and they see that. So, you can go ahead and parent them, but it's okay to teach them that, guess what? That's not the only way to be as a man. You can interact with women in a respectful manner. You can see a woman walk into a boardroom and know she belongs there and not go, oh, she fucked her way in here, right? So that's going to take a lot longer to actually reprogram. And that's what women and men who are not, misogynistic assholes are trying to do. They're trying to move us forward. But when you have principals or wannabe principals saying we're not going to talk about sexism, we're not going to acknowledge racism, we're not going to acknowledge that these things are still real prevalent problems because they're political and they're propaganda, that is a big issue because not addressing it is what we've done for hundreds of years. And now everybody's got their panties in a wad because people are going, just because it's always been that way doesn't make it okay.
It's been addressed. Everything that's going on today has been addressed, and
we're
changed.
Still fighting,
and
Len.
It's changed.
And we're still fighting. Women still make 70 cents on the dollar, my man. We still don't have the same sort of access or equity. We still don't, when it comes to health, we don't have fucking control over our own bodies in this country. Do you understand that?
That's
so
a problem.
That's
a problem.
We're rolling back rights on a daily basis in this country, whether it's the LGBTQIA plus community. When we're talking about, you can roll your eyes all you want. That's a real thing, Lenny. In the state of Florida, people are not protected based on their sexual identity, right? So
I feel
if you're gay, you can be fired for being gay, and you can't file a wrongful termination lawsuit. You can be denied housing, and you can't really file, I don't know what that would even be, discrimination suit, because you're not protected under our state constitution, period. So these things still exist. So pretending in your school like they don't is not helping us grow and evolve and become a better society. And that's all people are trying to do right now. I'm not trying to beat
But you say
men
that's
down.
all people are trying to do. It's not really all people are trying to do, or we wouldn't be having this conversation, because half the people are clearly trying to do the opposite.
Half the people don't want it to happen. And it's
Half
it's
the people
same-
are trying to do the
Len,
opposite. So where's the middle ground? Anyways, we're out of time for today's episode.
I love that now you want to be out of time.
What? It's 60 minutes. We
Okay.
said we were going to do 40.
Yeah.
You said we couldn't stay on this conversation.
Get backed into a wall, and we're there, and then
I'm not backed
I
into the
told you
wall.
I
I'm
didn't
just
wanna have
asking
this conversation
where the
because
middle
this was where it was
ground
gonna
is.
go.
Where the middle ground is, because
It's not
clearly
at
half,
pretending that this shit isn't a problem in this country.
No,
And especially not with our
it's-
young people. You know how you find the middle ground?
But
Len?
do you feel-
create a better next generation?
Can you understand that people on the other side feel like that is a problem in this country? You do? Do you feel that? Do you understand that?
That
I
women
understand
wanting equal pay for equal work is a problem? Sure. Yeah.
the whole gamut of what we're talked about today. Okay,
That
there's
they
a
should-
lot of people
Yeah.
that feel like that's the problem with our country.
That white people are better than black people. That
Oh,
white people are better than
God.
Latin people. That Lenny, that's yeah.
You
yeah.
always go right to white and black. I can show you.
I said
can show
Spanish.
you diversity
my-
on both sides.
my man,
There's
the
right
first-
and left in every ethnicity in this country.
Lenny, the first thing out of my mouth was, sure, there are people here that think women don't deserve equal pay for equal work. That was the first thing I said. I didn't go right to white and black. I'm really looking at the things that I'm fighting with you about today. Like, if you want to act like Islamophobia isn't an issue in this country, it is. And 9/11 was a part of that. Is a part of that. Acting like it doesn't exist in a country that has religious freedom, right? But only if your religion is my religion. Like, we need to address these things. We have
We need to teach. We need to.
I know you
teach
don't like that word.
equality. We need to teach. Yeah, that's fine. But that's
You can't do that without addressing these things and teaching people that these things are wrong. To dislike people or to limit people based on the color of their skin is not okay. It was never okay, and it's certainly not okay in 2023. And this is a country that has used things like education to do that under the radar or under the guise of separate but equal. Or so, I mean, to eliminate that part of the history or to try to skirt around it or to say these things are propaganda. No, they're real. Like, they're real. Yes, people use them for their political motives, and yes, people weaponize them via propaganda, but it doesn't mean that they're not real problems. And the way that you address it and you fix it for the future is to create better little human beings.
Do you think some of these problems get blown up bigger than they are? Do you think that some of these problems get blown up bigger than they are?
I'm going to be honest, Lenny.
Because, first of all, you cannot and will not ever I don't care what kind of society you build, make everyone happy. Ever. Ever. So, do you think that some of these things are perpetuated and blown up bigger than they really are?
So the man started off with the narrative is a very America First narrative, and you have to admit that, right?
But that's what it should be.
Lenny, be very careful how you say that.
It's what it should be.
No, but America First is what got the Twin Towers bombed, right? When you don't understand other people's cultures and you go and you insert yourself in things that they do, right? That leads to tension and it leads to disdain. And that is what ended up getting our country bombed, right? By terrorists.
So when I say America First, you take it as
that's white national. You know that America First is literally
no, not to me.
Okay, but that's
not to me.
Literally, if I Google it, like literally, when you say America First, though, that it's
so now we have to cancel America First.
It's associated with white nationalism.
So now, no, it's associated by you with white nationalists.
No.
It's associated with me by my country is the most important thing.
Is it to you, Lenny, or is business the most important thing to you?
Listen, I happen to really care about America, and I'm really proud that I was born and raised here, and I don't believe it's as free as everybody feels it is, but whatever. It's what I'm stuck with. We still have advantages over the rest of the world. We can still think freely, okay? I believe in America because people can come here and make something of themselves. I don't care what they are.
They can, but then you want to tell them that they have to do it in this very specific American way, or you face the backlash of being a Muslim in America, or you face the backlash of being Indian in America. Like, Len, you're lucky.
Or Jewish in America.
Or Jewish in America, sure.
I mean, do you have a problem with lumping them in with all the minorities that
No,
we
'cause
seem
they
to be talking about?
Definitely are a persecuted minority.
Okay, so listen, everybody in this country that comes to America should have some cultural ties to America. I'm not telling them to forget about their culture. I'm not telling them to forget about their religion. I'm not forcing them to not have their religion.
Why can't we be better and also understand the people who make up this great country of ours? Like, why can't we teach? Why wouldn't we do that? If we have a significant Muslim population, and guess what? That is the world's leading religion.
Okay.
Is Muslim.
And?
Just for the record. They come in all colors.
Yeah, so what's your
All
point?
nations. Why would you not want to teach about that?
I don't want to teach Catholicism in school. I don't want to teach Judaism in school, and I don't want to teach any religion in school.
But you want to say but you want God in our Pledge of Allegiance, and then you have the other.
First of all, every religion has a God. Okay, that's first off.
They don't refer to him as God, but yes,
But
I get it.
Well,
that's not the God we're talking about, though.
It's God.
We're talking
As
about.
a matter of fact,
white,
the main three
heterosexual
religions have the
Christianity.
same God.
Yeah, but the point is the folks, you're not even one of these people that you are so staunchly defending right now, because the people that disagree with me fundamentally, that watch this and have a problem with what I'm saying, tend to be on a very far extreme fringe, right? And they're white Christian. When you say America first, there's presidents that have used that. It's it's American exceptionalism, which tends to be white exceptionalism. It's non-interventionism. It's what kept us out of World War II for a very big portion of the war. You know what I'm saying? Even though we love to take all the credit for winning it. Thank you, Russia. We appreciate you. In that situation. Again, history, right? You got to teach it, and we can't always teach it from an America first perspective. And again, am I saying that we need to be teaching Muslim and Catholicism?
America first.
Why wouldn't you teach a religion class, though?
America
religion is
first.
Can I tell you?
Listen, I have no problem teaching a religion class that compares the
All of
thing
them,
as an elective.
right?
As an elective. I don't think it should be.
But don't you think that would be helpful? Don't you think when people, start fighting about religion and the only one they know is the church that they visited their whole life, right? And they want to hate somebody because of something else. Oh, that book or this or that or whatever. You're a bunch of terrorists. Imagine if they had a whole course that had compared Judaism and Muslim and Christianity and Catholicism and realized they're all the same. All their books say the same thing.
Same book,
You know
different
what I'm saying?
interpretations.
But imagine if you had that. That argument goes a whole different direction.
It might.
So to me, the more education young people have access to, the more we expand their minds, the better off our society will be, the more accepting, the more tolerant, the more understanding.
What I don't get, because I'm not very religious, okay? But I don't understand why people are butthurt about one nation under God. Again, every religion has a God.
But not everybody.
The three main religions
atheists
are the same God. Okay? So
I'm assuming that's atheists and Satanists that have a real issue with the God thing. Or people who just don't believe that God has any place.
It doesn't matter.
In schools.
Yeah. Well, I get it. But that's not a school thing. That's an America thing. That's what the country was founded on. And the fact that we have that allows you to not believe in God. Okay? So it's like the things they're picking their battles over are the stupidest things you could ever imagine.
Would you be mad if an American reciting the national anthem in school said one nation under Jah or one nation under Allah or one nation under... Would you be upset about that? The whole Pledge of Allegiance.
Is there a reason to change the Pledge of Allegiance?
That's their God.
Let's vote. Let's listen. The Pledge of Allegiance was put in place.
I'm just saying they're doing it.
Well, they can change the Constitution. They can change anything else.
No. I'm saying you have children in the classroom.
Yeah.
Who are like, I love this. But I don't say God. I say Allah. That's
okay.
who I pray
That's
to.
fine with me.
Like that's really all it is.
That's fine with me.
God. That's who
but
the founding fathers prayed to.
You're also creating controversy in the classroom by allowing that.
But then you're trying to force your religion. So again, where's
not
the middle?
forcing a religion.
If somebody comes to you and says, "I'm willing," I would love to say the prayer. I would love to say. I would love a moment of prayer at the beginning of every day. But I'm gonna get on my prayer cloth and I'm going to pray as I would pray to Allah. I'm going to have a Zen Buddhist moment, whatever that looks like. If you say no, you can only pray to God.
That's not what you're saying with that, Kimmy. That's not what you're saying with the fucking.
What are you talking? No, that's your God. That's all I'm saying. Why do you have a problem with somebody changing it to Allah? It's the same word, just in a different religion. That's who they would pray to. One nation under Allah. One nation under God.
That's fine.
So you're trying to say that your God is the God that is the God of this country. Your God. Your Christian God.
No, I'm saying
not
what
Allah.
was written 100 years ago or 200 years ago.
Okay, you're saying all the other words. But what I'm saying is, see, this is the problem. Like, that's a compromise. Saying, listen, if you are of a different faith, right? That's like saying, if you don't believe in God,
I'm fine
leave
with
it
that.
out. But you're going to say the
That's
pledge
fine.
because that is American.
That's fine.
Right? Your pledge, this is our flag. This is what we pay homage to.
I totally agree with you on that. You win that one.
Well, thank you.
I don't care. I don't care about that, but I don't think it should be taken out of the schools. I think we're really going to have to come to a reckoning at some point that if you want to be in this country, you have to be fucking American and you have to appreciate this country.
But what does that mean? Like,
it means you have to take pride in your country. And whatever that may be at this point, change it in other ways.
Who doesn't, though? Like, can I tell you something? Some of the
a lot of people.
Yeah, many of them have been here a long time. They're not new. They've been in this place a long fucking time. It's not the immigrants that are coming here that don't.
I didn't
they
say it was.
want to be here more than half
I
the
didn't
people
say
that
it
are
was.
from here. Born here.
I didn't say it was.
Do you understand what I'm
I
saying?
told you.
So that's a frustrating narrative, though, because you have all of these incredible people coming here speaking other languages that pray to other gods, that have other religions, that still see the United States of America as this shining beacon, even though we are trying to take some of their right. You understand? Like it's crazy to me that Americans are the ones tarnishing, to some degree, what America stands for and what America is.
No, but Kimmy, again, what America stands for is an open place where everyone can come and live.
Ooh.
But it's America. So in America, you speak English. It's one of those things. If you went to France and moved to France and tried to get them to all teach you in English, they're going to go, ha ha, crazy American.
Depends on where you're at. If you're in Paris, they'd rather you not fuck up their language.
Every other country in this world. Every other country in this world.
Well, you also can't, but you also realize, again, that is part of the capitalist American dream, though. What makes us so different and why we are such a melting pot is exactly that. If you go to France as an American, I can't get a job that a French person could do in France as an American. I have to have a job. I have to teach English, right? I have to be an English tutor. Like, a lot of countries protect their people, like much harder borders, I don't know what that's called, closed borders. I mean, you can still, obviously you can still immigrate there. We know this. But America is a different beast, and it's what has made us so incredible. But I think sometimes we forget that, but that's going to come with challenges. And again, I will, I guess, end with part of, the thing that I love the most about watching the Olympics is watching the American team come in and watching every race, creed, color, sexuality, be represented. I love watching their back, seeing the last names from all over the world. Like, and we've joked, when you see the Russian team come in, they got Russian last names. You see the German team come in, all their last names is German. And America, it truly, when you see us like that at our best, at our greatest, the best of the best coming together to represent for this incredible nation, like, I'm going to cry. Like, that's what I think of this country. So when you play me a clip, like you played me from TikTok, where this man is kind of like, it's a homogenization, and it's this very ethnocentric, approach to it. And it's like, that's not what makes. I like the fact that at elementary school they do. What is it called when you all kind of represent your culture? They do like cultural awareness week.
Yeah.
So if you're Chinese, you bring in dumplings. If you're Spanish, you bring in arroz con pollo. If you're Greek, you bring in grape leaf.
Yeah.
I love that. This guy is basically saying we're not doing that anymore. We're not going to acknowledge that any of us come from different backgrounds because we are all American, and that is part of what makes America so fucking great.
Mm-hmm. On that, we'll end.
Okay. Peace. Listen. Like, subscribe, share, follow. He wanted to have this conversation today.
Yes, I did.
I wanted to talk about the craziness with the gun, so I don't know. It probably would have gone just as left. But listen.
That'll be the next episode.
Like, subscribe.
We're going to hit on AI soon, too, I think.
God, I'm so... And I don't know. We may just... Well, no, we disagree on everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
One last time. Like, subscribe, share, follow. Make sure you're following us on all social media. I'm sure there will be some incredible clips for you to comment on, for you to stitch. Please make sure you leave us your commentary. We are inspired by you. Sometimes I want to punch some of you in the face. I'll say that openly and honestly, especially you guys on YouTube that are just Lenny stands. YouTube is like your space, bro. The YouTube clips, those are your people. TikTokers, sometimes they're on my side.
Do you know why?
Because you target men on YouTube.
No, because 70% of our YouTube audience is male, and 70% of our TikTok audience is female.
Oh, there you go. Anyway, listen, we'll see you for episode 52 back here in the Man Cave. Peace out. I don't know what that was. I just pointed.